The latest entry in Nintendo's charmingly offbeat life sim series, Animal Crossing New Horizons, is out now. It's great. It has wholesome villages, delicious fruit, and you can hang out with your buddies. It's a charming and relaxing game. What you may not know is that the beloved series actually comes from one of Nintendo's worst commercial failures ever. Animal Crossing made its debut on the world stage nearly 20 years ago, with 2002's Animal Crossing for the GameCube. However, the series actually began life on the Nintendo 64. The very first Animal Crossing was known in Japan as Dobutsu no Mori, or Animal Forest, and was the brainchild of two Nintendo designers, Katsuya Eguchi and Hisashi Nogami. While neither of these two lads may have the same name recognition as Shigeru Miyamoto or Eiji Aonuma, they still had a hand in creating some of Nintendo's most beloved titles. Eguchi directed Star Fox and Wave Race 64, while Nogami worked as a character designer on Yoshi's Island and Mario Kart 64. He also went on to produce Splatoon. According to Eguchi, Animal Crossing was originally envisioned for the 64DD, the ill-fated disk drive peripheral for the Nintendo 64. It began life as an N64DD project, he explained in an interview. We came up with the concept of a game where you hang out and do stuff with a bunch of people in a single field. Then, one by one, we started coming up with more ideas, and Animal Crossing is really just a collection of all those different strands. Wouldn't you know it, it turns out Animal Crossing was actually the first Strand game. Sorry, Kojima. The 64DD attached to the N64's underside and expanded the system's functionality with a range of additional hardware features. The peripheral boasted a drive for rewritable floppy disks, an internal clock, and even offered limited internet connectivity. Nintendo said that these features would inspire new kinds of games and genres, and its designers definitely seemed energized by the possibilities it opened up. The 64DD's real-time clock in particular was instrumental to the Animal Crossing idea. In fact, the entire game was pretty much built around it. Just like in the real world, days and seasons in Animal Crossing would pass by according to the calendar, so your village would be blanketed in snow during the winter months, and cherry blossoms would bloom during the spring. In turn, different types of fish and insects would emerge depending on the time of the year, and holidays would be celebrated in the game as they occurred in real life. This created the sense that Animal Crossing was a small, living world, marching along inside your console, even when you weren't actively playing it. Despite the 64DD's potential, however, the peripheral was plagued by setbacks. Nintendo originally intended to launch it in 1997, a year after the N64 itself, but the company encountered numerous hurdles during its development, so it was repeatedly delayed. When the 64DD did finally hit the market late in 1999, it was near the end of the N64's lifetime, and only a small handful of games supported it. The accessory was unceremoniously discontinued a little over a year after it launched. With the 64DD being a non-starter, Animal Forest was eventually released on the standard N64 cartridge, but the developers still found ways to incorporate features that were inspired by the 64DD without utilizing the hardware itself. Since the N64 itself didn't have an internal clock, Nintendo included a battery-backed one in the Animal Forest cartridge, allowing the game to track the date and time. Likewise, instead of storing additional data on the 64DD's floppy disks, the game made use of a controller pack, a memory card that plugged into the back of the N64 controller. These workarounds allowed the developers to release Animal Forest on the base N64 hardware without sacrificing the game's most distinctive features. Animal Forest launched in Japan in April 2001, making it one of the final first-party titles to hit the system before it was supplanted by the GameCube later that year. This unfortunate timing undoubtedly hampered the game's sales, and the N64 version wasn't released outside of Japan. The title would, however, get a second lease on life when it was ported to the GameCube that December. Nintendo's new totally cubular system would prove to be a more fitting home for the game, as many of the features the 64DD offered, including a real-time clock, were built right into the hardware. Animal Crossing made its debut in the US the following year, after some extensive localization changes. The game eventually went on to sell more than 2 million copies worldwide, an impressive number for what was at the time a new and unconventional franchise. However, the title's follow-up, Animal Crossing Wild World for the DS, really propelled the series to worldwide popularity. Wild World moved more than 11 million copies, and each successive mainline installment likewise has become a multi-million seller, with New Leaf shifting more than 12 million copies on the 3DS. Each of these games builds upon the original Animal Forest's foundation with new features, activities, and customization options, but the core appeal of the series remains its leisurely, real-time pace, and that has its roots in the 64DD. The peripheral may have failed to live up to Nintendo's expectations, but it definitely inspired a new kind of game. Thanks for watching this brief history on the interesting origins of Animal Crossing. If you're playing New Horizons, make sure to check out our guides. We've got a bunch of tips for when you start and when you continue to progress. While you're there, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're all still playing Animal Crossing and loving it, so we'll keep you updated on new discoveries.